Wow. Good afternoon, Ms. Harshaw and Mr. Brown. Welcome to Win TV. Denise, let's talk. That's you know who I am. Anyway, how are you all?
We are fine. Thank you so much for having us on.
Yes, we
Yeah,
are. Very much.
wonderful. I'm so glad to have you here. I as you heard me earlier, intro the speech by Frederick Douglass, and when he spoke at the 76th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, and he asked that question, to what is freedom, or to what is the Declaration of Independence to the slave, right? And so it sounds like you all are kind of still trying to address that issue, to ask that question. So tell us, or answer that question. Tell us about the foundation and how that applies to where we are today as we begin to celebrate,
Well,
observe the 4th of July. I'll put it that way.
well, we here in Williamsburg, we celebrate a season of freedom because we have a very complex history. Williamsburg and the country will celebrate the birth of American independence. But what we can't forget is that the first slave landed here in 1619. For 150 years, people of color were here working, living, worshiping in this place. And so, we have in Williamsburg uncovered the fact that Williamsburg, the city, was 52% Black in 1776,
Wow.
free and enslaved Blacks. So we can't forget about that part. We're still struggling with it because we have Juneteenth, we have July 4th, and we now have a consortium here that we are founding partners of, where we celebrate a season of freedom. We start on June 19th and we don't finish until after the 4th of July.
That is, I have to say, Williamsburg is, I love historic places, and Williamsburg is on the top of my list. And of course, several years ago, I took a visit there, and I spent, that's how I learned about, what is it? January 1st.
Watch night.
Watch night, because
Yes,
we
ma'am.
spent it at, what's the plantation that's down there?
There are several plantations that are
Uh-huh.
here.
Okay, I
Matter
should
of fact,
know. Right,
in
right,
fact,
right.
we have Plantation Row on Route 5, but some of the very famous ones, of course, are from our most famous Virginians and all of our presidents. But you're right, Watch Night, a lot of people didn't know what it was. They just thought you went to church on Christmas Eve. They didn't understand that the Emancipation Proclamation became effective on January 1st, 1863.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, we have big Watch Night celebrations here.
All I can remember is Grove, but there was
Grove.
it
Oh,
was
okay.
yeah. And
Yes.
so there we spent watch night, and it really had a lot of meaning to me after that point.
Mhm.
And so, these occasions, the 4th of July, watch night, or New Year's Eve, to us have totally different meanings, which is why I really appreciate reading Frederick Douglass's speech. And so, you all are there in Williamsburg, you're bringing our African American history to life. And tell us how else you all are doing this, Mr. Brown.
Well, one of the things we're doing is that we've developed a documentary called History Half Told is Untold. And what you just saw was the trailer to that. But
Mm,
that documentary actually tells a more complete story of our history. And we do emphasize that African American history is American history. And we tell it to everyone that we run across. I have made concerted effort to get that documentary out to as many people, organizations as possible throughout the Williamsburg community and beyond. And we've had pretty relative success in doing that, and we're still doing it. But we know we're trying to fill in a gap, because we know there are certain gaps in our history, and we're just simply trying to fill in one of them and trying to educate everyone that sees that film about the achievements that and the resiliency that Black people have done and are still doing in our history and in this country.
I guess this is what happens, because as you talk, things are coming back to me now. Carter's Grove.
Carter's Grove. That's
Hmm.
right. Carter's
Yeah,
Grove
yeah.
Plantation. That's
Yes,
right.
couple times, and I always say that when it comes to Black history, a lot of historic places like Williamsburg and others, once upon a time, it was not our history. They would say, and Black people, the slaves lived over there, and there's nothing really to document the lives that we lived, especially knowing that there were so many free Black people in that area. I never knew that.
Yes.
So is the film available generally, or is it something that we all must make a trip to Williamsburg to see? And what else are you all doing down there to make that trip memorable?
All right. Well, I guess I'll go first, Connie.
Okay.
The film is available, but you don't necessarily have to make a trip to Williamsburg
Okay.
to see it. We can link you to see the film, and we actually do make a presentation about the film so that people will understand a little bit about it ahead of time. I can honestly tell you that the great majority of times we have shown that film, many people have walked away saying, "Gee, I didn't know that."
Hmm.
And because that was an aspect of our history that was not taught to us in school. This is something that's truly important when, excuse me, it talks about the humanity of people, of our people at that time and up to the present. Um, we can easily link someone to see the trailer and the film, but we also like to talk to them briefly because I like to know what questions do you have about history, about our history that you either didn't know about, and try to encourage them to talk to their own members of their own family about their
Mhm.
history, so
Hmm.
that we would know about it. What our mothers and dads did, and our uncles and grandparents, and so forth and so on, and learn to appreciate the challenges they went through to get this far.
So I think Nat is being a bit modest as well, Ms. Barnes. We were the recipients of the Virginia Black Film Festival Award
Yes,
last February at Hampton
Wonderful.
University. We debuted our film in the United Kingdom last summer
that's
because
right.
there is an amazing interest in the work that we're doing here, which includes, and I love it when people say, well, I come to Williamsburg. I love to come to Williamsburg. When we have the folks that are in the business of marketing saying, if I'm a Black person, why do I want to come to Williamsburg? And we are now in the process of answering that question and answering it very well.
That's
We
right.
have
That's
the
right.
most significant archaeological project in the country right now. We have just uncovered artifacts from the original church, one of the first churches in the country, Black churches. We found 62 intact burials. We
Wow.
celebrated on Juneteenth the markers that will lay there indefinitely. No one will ever have to pay admission to see those. That's the
That's right.
deal that we struck. We have William and Mary digitizing artifacts. We have family members bringing Bibles 1852 because now they are understanding and accepting that our history matters. It matters. This
That's right.
wasn't Black history and white history, it was American history. And we have to tell it in the context of the American story.
In addition, the James City, there's a high school here called James City County High School,
Hmm.
and they are in the process of incorporating our documentary into their U.S. history curriculum, and that makes them the first high school in the country to do that. And
Wow.
we're excited about that because we're trying to get the word out to as many people as possible about
Well,
our
we're glad.
history.
Yeah, we're glad that you all joined us here today to talk about this, particularly at this time. All those significant dates. I think it was the what is it? The anniversary of Jamestown. I came down for that.
Mhm.
It sounds as if, despite what folks are trying to do to bury or deny us our history,
Hmm.
it just seems like it can't happen. I don't know if you're getting funding or supported from the state or from the city of Williamsburg. How are you all able to do all this work?
Well, let me just tell you that when we announced the work that we were going to do to uncover the foundation of the original church and have it restored, well, first to look for it. Within 3 weeks, Colonial Williamsburg had received $3.5 million in donations.
Mm.
The country now is ready to hear the full story. 6 months later, they got another Mellon grant for $4 million, because it's important that you understand that before 1789, before they offered, freedom of religion in our Constitution, you had Black folks that were enslaved. They knew what it meant to worship freely in the way that they could, and in the way that they brought with them from Africa. So this story is a compelling story. You have a white townsman who donated land to these Black people, free and enslaved, for the sole purpose of administering and understanding and using their, and honoring their faith. So, I mean, it is a wonderful story. It's a powerful story. We are now negotiating with the Smithsonian to get the data from the 2 earliest Africans that landed here. They have done the data, have gotten it. It is now with the Smithsonian. We are negotiating with them to pull that back down here. We are now asking our families here to trace their genealogy, because as you can imagine, there's a lot of race mixing. We have people in the Black community who know now because of Ancestry.com that they're descendants of John Tyler, President John Tyler. So we're doing a lot here to connect the descendant community and to do the work that we need to do. For the African American Heritage Trail is going to be in place in 2026. So we're going to invite you to come back, because we can guarantee you that experience is going to be quite different than when you came and visited Carter's Grove.
I believe it. I believe it. Wonderful. And we do, the Washington Former Charities does an annual African American Heritage Tour. And so we're going to mark that date. We'll talk some more, but we'll mark that date in 2026 to make sure we bring, and we usually travel anywhere from, about 100 to 300 people strong. So we will, going to put that down for 2026. Do you know when and exactly when the trail opens?
I can tell you that I'm going to speak for the city now, which I'm sure I'll end up paying for tonight at a reception.
All right.
But I can tell you the anniversary of the church is October the 9th, 2026.
Okay.
That is the date that we're shooting for, not just for the church, but also the African American Heritage Trail, because I also sit on that board. And I wanted to sit there because I want all of this to come together at the same time, and to make sure that our voices are heard as well.
Well, before I let you go, I'm always curious about how, some of us end up in these places and spaces. And so are you all from originally, your families, you, Mr. Brown or Ms. Hershaw, are you from Williamsburg? Are you part of these historic families? Or, what made you dig in and decide, this is going to be your life's calling?
I am. That's interesting. I am not from Williamsburg originally. I'm from Baltimore, as a matter of fact.
Okay, all right.
And I moved to I actually retired from my job and so forth, and moved to Williamsburg. And it really started when I attended the church, and the pastor asked me asked me to be involved in a project called Let Freedom Ring, and I was thinking it was a little church project, and it turned out to be huge
It
and
is huge,
everything.
yes.
But it's also I find it very rewarding to share our history with as many people as possible, because I want people to know the truth about us, and to understand that, I always ask this question: if you were in the 1700s, you were not considered to be human, so why would people be interested in knowing what you believe in religiously?
Mm-hmm.
And that I ask that question so people can think. Remember, these were people like you and me, and so forth. And Connie clearly emphasized they did have strong religious beliefs. And look what God has done. The church
Wow.
is 247 years old. My goodness, that's amazing.
I am not
It's
from the
exciting.
area.
Okay.
I am not from the area. My father was a military. I'm a military dependent. I went to school in Hampton, and then I left here and came to the DC area. But I have to tell you that working in the descendant community, I keep saying, I'm not a descendant, I'm not a descendant. And they said, but we were waiting for you.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
I have to tell you, that hits me in
Yeah.
the deepest parts of my soul when I have a 93-year-old woman that says to me, you came to us because God will place strangers in your midst to carry your cause. And, you know, that's what motivates me every morning when I get up and I think about all of this work. And Nat knows it's a lot of work,
It is.
but
It is.
Can imagine.
that's what energizes me.
That's
So I'm going to have to come and check you out, Connie, because we may have crossed paths at Hampton. I'm not sure because I was there for a couple years as well.
Okay.
But anyway, I just, you know, again, as we begin to celebrate the 4th of July or observe, I keep saying some celebrate, some just observe. But in your opinion, how should we observe, Black people observe the 4th of July?
Well, I don't want to diminish the fact that, again, my perspective is as a military dependent.
Mm-hmm.
I asked my father that because I grew up in Montgomery before coming to Virginia. And I said to him, we came back to the United States in 1959, and we were stationed in Montgomery, Alabama at the Air University. And I said, Daddy, why is it that you wear your uniform proudly? You can't even eat in the restaurants. You can't stay in the hotels. What is wrong with you? And he said, it's simple. This is my country. And that was pretty powerful for me because as much as I struggle with our complex history, I know that my father stood in the line of fire to defend the nation. And when we think about that, he's not the only one. We have Black Revolutionary War soldiers that fought. And we know their names. That's the good things now. We know their names now, that they fought for the independence of this country.
That's
And
right.
so that's the part that we have to struggle with and we have to balance and we have to be okay and acknowledge it because it is our country. This is our country. And so that no one gets the exclusivity of celebrating, acknowledging, or doing whatever. We were here. We ain't going nowhere. We gonna be here.
I want to thank you all so very much for being with us, for ending on that very strong note. And we certainly do want to hear more about what's happening down there in Williamsburg. So I guess I'm going to have to come so I can come back and tell folks.
Yes.
Okay. Have a wonderful day and keep working on our behalf. We appreciate you.
We will.
We
Thank
will.
you.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.